If your container garden looks tired every summer, you are not alone. One week the plants look green, upright, and full of promise. Then the heat settles in. The leaves hang down in the afternoon. The soil pulls away from the edge of the pot. Lettuce turns bitter. Spinach bolts. Cilantro disappears almost overnight. And suddenly, the garden that looked alive in spring feels like it is giving up. But that does not always mean you failed as a gardener. Sometimes the problem is not your effort. Sometimes it is not even your soil. The real problem may be that you are asking cool season plants to survive in weather they were never built for. Why do some container vegetables collapse in summer, while others seem to grow even faster when the weather gets hot? That is why we begin here. A hot summer does not have to end your container garden. It can simply be the moment when you stop fighting the season and start growing the plants that actually belong in it. In this video, we're going to look at 15 container vegetables that can keep producing in extreme summer heat. Not miracle plants. Not plants you can ignore, but vegetables that naturally handle heat better than lettuce, spinach, peas, and many cool season crops. Crops like okra, eggplant, peppers, cowpeas, amaranth, Malabar spinach, sweet potato vines, heat-tolerant cherry tomatoes, basil, and more can turn a hot patio, balcony, or small backyard into a useful summer food garden. Before we get into the list, there is one mistake that can make even heat-loving vegetables fail in containers. Heat-loving does not mean water-free. A plant can love warm air and still suffer if its roots are trapped in a small, dry, overheated pot. That difference matters more than most beginners realize. Container gardening in summer is different from growing in the ground. In the ground, roots can often move deeper and wider to find cooler soil and more moisture. But in a container, the roots live inside a small space. The sides of the pot heat up, the soil volume is limited, water drains out or evaporates faster. If the pot sits on concrete, brick, asphalt, or a sunny deck, the heat can come from above, from the sides, and from below. That is why a container plant may look fine in the morning and tired by late afternoon. The leaves are not just reacting to sunlight. The roots may be under stress too. By the time you see the leaves drooping, the plant may be telling you that the root zone is too hot, too dry, or changing too quickly between wet and dry. After a few failed attempts, it is easy to think, maybe I just cannot grow vegetables in summer. But the better question is, am I growing summer crops? Or am I trying to keep spring crops alive in summer weather? Cool season crops have their place. Lettuce, spinach, cilantro, peas, and many tender greens can be wonderful in spring and fall. But when long days, warm nights, and intense afternoon sun arrive, many of them try to finish their life cycle quickly. They bolt, they turn bitter, they stop producing the leaves you wanted. In a container, that can happen even faster because there is less soil to protect the roots. Heat-loving crops behave differently. Many start to grow with more confidence when the soil is warm, the sun is strong, and the season feels too intense for cool weather vegetables. Okra can push upward. Eggplant can set glossy fruit. Peppers can keep flowering when moisture is steady. Amaranth can replace tender greens. Malabar spinach can climb instead of collapsing. Sweet potato vines can spread across the soil surface and help shade the pot. But these plants are heat-loving, not indestructible. If the pot is too small, if the soil dries completely every afternoon, if the roots bake against a hot wall, or if the plant is moved into full sun too suddenly, even the right crop can struggle. The goal is not just to choose better plants. The goal is to match those plants with the right container system. Think of your summer container garden as a partnership. The plant brings heat tolerance. You bring root protection. The plant brings growth. You bring steady moisture. The plant brings the ability to produce in warm weather. You bring the pot size, mulch, watering rhythm, and shade when the sun becomes too harsh. That shift changes everything. Instead of forcing lettuce through August heat, you can grow amaranth. Instead of watching spinach collapse, you can train Malabar spinach up a simple trellis. Instead of leaving empty hot pots on your patio, you can plant peppers, eggplant, basil, cowpeas, or sweet potato vines. If you have a balcony, rooftop, rental patio, or narrow side yard, every container counts. You do not want to waste a large pot on a crop that quits as soon as the weather gets serious. So as we go through the 15 vegetables, listen for 3 things. First, why each plant handles heat better than many cool season crops. Second, what kind of container habit it needs. A deeper pot, a wider grow bag, a trellis, or steady pruning. Third, the mistake that can ruin it, because every heat-loving plant still has a weakness. The first group will be for gardeners who want real summer harvests. Okra, eggplant, and peppers. These crops can give you pods, fruit, color, and structure when the weather is too hot for many tender greens. Before we get there, remember this simple rule. Summer does not only test the leaves, it tests the roots. If the roots are protected, watered deeply, and given enough space, a heat-loving plant has a much better chance to keep growing. So before we talk about the 15 plants, we need to build the summer container system that keeps their roots alive. The right plant is only the first half. The second half is the pot, soil, water, and mulch. Now that we know why summer containers fail, let's build the system that keeps heat-loving vegetables alive and productive. Choosing the right plant is only the first half of the job. The other half is giving that plant a container where the roots can stay cool enough, moist enough, and strong enough to keep feeding the leaves, flowers, and fruit. The first piece is container size. In summer, a small pot can become a problem very quickly. It may look convenient on a balcony or patio, but it holds less soil, less water, and less protection for the roots. When the sun hits the sides of that pot for hours, the soil temperature can rise fast. Then the plant may wilt even if the leaves looked healthy in the morning. A larger container gives the roots more room and gives the soil more moisture to work with. It does not mean you need giant containers for every crop, but fruiting crops like eggplant, peppers, okra, tomatoes, cucumbers, and squash usually need more root space than a small herb pot can provide. In extreme heat, moving one size larger can be the difference between a plant that only survives and a plant that keeps producing. The second piece is the position of the container. Dark plastic pots, thin nursery pots, metal buckets, and containers sitting directly on concrete can heat up fast. A pot on hot concrete is not only receiving sun from above, it may also be absorbing heat from below. If the container is pushed against a hot wall, the roots may feel that heat from the side too. One simple fix is to raise containers slightly off the hottest surface. A small stand, wood slats, bricks with airspace, or a plant caddy can help air move under the pot. Another fix is to group containers so the leaves shade each other. A summer container garden does not have to look perfect. It needs to protect the root zone. The third piece is soil. In hot weather, you want a mix that holds moisture without staying swampy. If the mix dries into a hard brick, water may run down the sides and out the bottom without soaking the roots. If the mix stays heavy and wet, roots can struggle for air. The goal is steady moisture with drainage. This is where deep watering becomes important. Many gardeners water every day and still lose plants because the watering is too shallow. The top inch of soil gets wet, but the deeper root zone stays dry. A better habit is to water slowly and deeply, so moisture moves through the root zone, not just across the surface. In many containers, you want to water until you see water begin to drain from the bottom. Then pause and let the pot drain. The goal is not to drown the plant. The goal is to make sure the roots are not living in a dry pocket. The fourth piece is timing. Watering early in the morning is often the safest rhythm for a hot summer container garden. The plant begins the day hydrated, and the leaves have time to dry if water splashes on them. Evening watering can help a very dry container recover, but you do not want plants sitting wet and airless all night. Watch the plant, check the soil, and adjust to your climate. One of the easiest ways to check a container is with your finger. Push into the soil below the surface, not just on top. If the top is dry, but the soil below is still slightly moist, the plant may be fine for a while. If the soil is dry deeper down, the roots need water. This is better than guessing from the leaves alone, because leaves can droop from heat even when the soil still has some moisture. The fifth piece is mulch. A thin layer of straw, shredded leaves, fine wood chips, dried grass clippings, or another clean organic mulch can protect the soil surface from direct sun. Mulch slows evaporation. It reduces the crusty, dry layer on top. It helps keep the root zone more stable, but mulch should not be piled tightly against the stem. Leave a little breathing room around the base of the plant. You want to shade the soil, not trap moisture against the stem. Simple, light, and even is better than a thick, wet pile. The sixth piece is shade. Heat-loving vegetables need sun, but in extreme summer conditions, especially on patios, balconies, rooftops, and paved spaces, afternoon sun can become more intense than the planter can use. Morning sun with light afternoon protection can be a powerful setup in very hot regions. That protection might be shade cloth, a taller plant nearby, a balcony railing, a trellis with vines, or simply moving a container away from the harshest reflected heat. You're not trying to put sun-loving vegetables in deep shade. You are trying to reduce the most stressful part of the day while still giving the plant enough light to grow. The seventh piece is feeding. Summer crops that produce fruit, pods, or constant leaves need nutrition, but heat-stressed plants do not always respond well to heavy feeding. If a plant is wilted, dry, and struggling in a heat wave, strong fertilizer may not fix the problem. First, stabilize the water and root zone. Then feed gently and consistently. So the summer container system is simple. Use enough soil volume, protect the pot from extreme heat, water deeply, mulch the surface, give light shade when needed, and avoid shocking a stressed plant. Look at the plant in the morning, check it in the late afternoon, and notice which pots dry first. Once this system is in place, the 15 vegetables in this video have a much better chance to grow through the heat. Now that the container system is clear, let's start with the crops that can still give you real summer harvests: okra, eggplant, and peppers. Now we can begin with the first group of heat-loving container vegetables. And this group is for gardeners who still want real summer harvests. Not just a few tired leaves hanging on in the heat, but pods, fruit, flowers, and color. The first plant is okra. If there is one vegetable that looks like it was built for hot summer weather, okra belongs near the top of the list. When many tender greens start to fade, okra often begins to look more comfortable. It likes warm soil, bright sun, and a long hot season. That makes it a strong choice for gardeners in hot parts of the United States who want something productive in a container. In a pot, okra needs more space than people sometimes expect. It can grow tall, and the roots need enough room to support that height. A deeper container or a sturdy grow bag is usually better than a small decorative pot. If the container is too small, the plant may survive, but it may stay weak, dry out too fast, or struggle to keep producing pods. Okra also needs steady moisture. It can handle heat better than many vegetables, but it should not be forced to live in dry, cracked soil every afternoon. Water deeply, mulch the surface, and check the pot often when the weather is extreme. If the leaves droop in the hottest part of the day but recover later, the plant may simply be reacting to heat. But if it stays limp, the root zone may be too dry. The harvest habit matters too. Pick okra while the pods are still young and tender. If you leave the pods on the plant too long, they can become tough, and the plant may slow down because it is putting energy into maturing those pods. A routine of checking often and harvesting young pods can encourage the plant to keep making more. The mistake to avoid with okra is treating it like a tiny patio plant. It may start small, but it wants vertical space, root space, and regular picking. Give it a strong container, full sun, and moisture that reaches the deeper roots, and okra can become one of the most dependable summer crops in a container garden. The second plant is eggplant. Eggplant can look beautiful in summer containers because it gives you both foliage and fruit. The leaves are broad, the flowers are attractive, and the fruit can become the visual proof that your summer garden is still working. For a patio garden, a healthy eggplant in a pot is one of the easiest plants to notice. Eggplant likes warmth, but it does not like being shocked. The key is steady growth. That means a container with enough depth, soil that does not dry out completely, and a feeding routine that supports fruiting without pushing the plant too hard during heat stress. If the plant is dry one day and soaked the next, it may slow down, drop flowers, or struggle to size up fruit. Because eggplant fruit can become heavy, support is helpful. A simple stake or small cage can keep the plant upright, especially in a windy balcony or open patio. This is easy to forget when the plant is young, but once the fruit begins to form, the stems may need help. The biggest mistake with eggplant in containers is inconsistent care. Some gardeners water lightly every day, but the deeper roots never get enough moisture. Others let the pot dry too far, then try to rescue the plant with heavy watering and strong fertilizer at the same time. A better approach is calmer. Water deeply, keep the surface mulched, feed gently, and let the plant grow steadily. If the plant wilts badly every afternoon, the container may be too small, the location may be too harsh, or the soil may be drying too fast. In the hottest areas, morning sun and light afternoon protection can sometimes keep the plant producing longer than all-day reflected heat, and when fruit appears, harvest it while it is still glossy and firm. The third plant is peppers. Peppers are one of the most popular summer container crops because they fit many spaces. You can grow sweet peppers, bell peppers, hot peppers, and compact varieties in containers, and they bring color that viewers immediately understand as a harvest. Peppers love warmth, but flowers can be sensitive when the plant is under stress. This part matters. A pepper plant may look healthy, flower beautifully, and then drop those flowers before they become fruit. That does not always mean the plant is useless. It may mean the weather is too intense, the watering is uneven, the container is too small, or the plant is protecting itself. For peppers, consistency is everything. Use a container with enough soil volume, keep the moisture steady, and avoid letting the plant swing from bone dry to soaked. Mulch can help. Morning watering can help. In very hot regions, a little afternoon shade can reduce stress while still giving the plant enough light. Hot peppers often handle heat better than many large sweet peppers, but both types still need root care. Smaller peppers can sometimes feel easier in containers because the plant does not have to size up huge fruit. For a beginner, compact pepper varieties can be a smart choice for a patio or balcony. So this first group gives you a strong summer foundation. Okra brings vertical growth and tender pods. Eggplant brings glossy fruit and a bold container look. Peppers bring color, variety, and daily usefulness in the kitchen. But remember the rule from the beginning. Heat-loving vegetables are not indestructible. These three crops can handle summer better than many cool season plants, but they still need enough soil, deep watering, mulch, and protection from the most punishing conditions. Next, we move into a trickier group: tomatoes, cucumbers, and summer squash. These are some of the most loved container crops, but in extreme heat, they need more strategy than many gardeners expect. Now we move into the crops many container gardeners dream about first: tomatoes, cucumbers, and summer squash. These are the plants that make a patio garden feel abundant. But in extreme summer heat, this group needs more strategy than okra or basil. Let's start with heat-tolerant cherry tomatoes. Tomatoes are popular, but they are also one of the easiest crops to misunderstand in hot containers. A tomato plant may love sun, but that does not mean every tomato variety will keep setting fruit when the nights stay warm and the afternoons are brutal. In many hot regions, large fruited tomatoes may slow down, drop blossoms, or struggle during the most intense part of summer. That is why cherry tomatoes, especially heat-tolerant varieties, are often a better choice for containers in hot weather. Smaller fruit usually takes less energy to size up, and many cherry types can keep producing more steadily than large slicing tomatoes. But the word heat-tolerant still matters. If you are planting for a long, hot summer, choose varieties known for handling heat, not just the prettiest packet on the seed rack. In a container, tomatoes need root space. A small pot may grow a tomato plant, but it may not support steady fruiting through heat. Use a large container, add a strong stake or cage early, and mulch the surface before the soil starts drying too fast. Tomatoes are heavy feeders, but during heat stress, Steady care is more important than pushing the plant hard with fertilizer. The biggest mistake with summer tomatoes is uneven moisture. If the pot dries too far and then receives a flood of water, the plant goes through stress cycles. Leaves curl, blossoms drop, fruit can crack, and the plant may never settle into a strong rhythm. Deep, consistent watering is the goal. Morning watering, mulch, and a container large enough to hold moisture can make a huge difference. Now, let's talk about cucumbers. A fresh cucumber from a patio trellis is one of the best rewards in a summer garden, but cucumbers can punish inconsistent watering quickly. When cucumber vines are stressed by heat and dry soil, the fruit may become bitter, misshapen, or slow to size up. That does not mean cucumbers cannot grow in summer containers. It means they need the right setup. For hot areas, consider Armenian cucumber or other heat-tolerant cucumber types. Armenian cucumber is often treated like a cucumber in the kitchen, even though botanically it is closer to a melon. For gardeners, the important point is simple. It can be a strong summer option when regular cucumbers struggle. Cucumbers need a trellis. This keeps the vines off the hot ground, improves airflow, makes the fruit easier to see, and helps a small container garden use vertical space. A trellis does not need to be fancy. A simple panel, string, bamboo frame, or balcony rail support can work if it is strong enough for the vine. The container should be wide enough and deep enough to keep moisture stable. A thirsty cucumber vine in a tiny pot can wilt fast. If you see leaves drooping every afternoon, check the soil below the surface. If it is dry deeper down, the plant needs a better watering routine or a larger container. If the soil is moist and the leaves recover later, the plant may simply be reacting to afternoon heat. Harvest cucumbers when they are young and tender. Leaving oversized fruit on the vine tells the plant to put energy into maturing seed. Regular picking keeps the plant more useful and helps you catch problems early. When you harvest often, you also notice pests, yellowing leaves, dry soil, or vines that need tying before the problem becomes serious. The third crop in this group is summer squash or zucchini. This one can be productive, but it needs honesty. Squash can grow in containers, but it is not the best choice for every balcony. It wants space, rich soil, steady water, and a container large enough to support big leaves and fast growth. Bush-type zucchini or compact summer squash varieties are better container choices. Avoid planting too many in one pot. A crowded squash plant becomes a problem quickly because the leaves are large, airflow drops, and the container dries fast. One healthy plant in a large container is usually better than several crowded plants fighting for water. Summer squash also brings a different challenge: pollination. A plant may produce flowers, but if female flowers are not pollinated well, the tiny squash may yellow and fall off. In a small patio garden with few pollinators, you may need to notice the flowers and, if necessary, hand pollinate. This is not complicated, but it is something beginners often miss. Like tomatoes and cucumbers, squash hates inconsistent moisture. Big leaves lose water fast in hot weather. Mulch, deep watering, and a large container help, but do not let the pot become waterlogged. The roots still need oxygen. The goal is not a swamp. The goal is steady moisture in a living root zone. This group is exciting because it gives you the classic summer garden feeling: tomatoes, cucumbers, and squash. But it also teaches an important lesson. The most popular crops are not always the easiest crops in extreme heat. If you choose the right variety, give them enough container space, support the vines, and water consistently, they can be rewarding. If you treat them like small decorative plants, they may disappoint you quickly. Next, we move from fruiting crops to the leafy greens that can replace lettuce when summer heat makes cool season greens give up. And this next group may completely change how you think about summer salads and cooking greens. If your lettuce bolts every summer, if your spinach disappears as soon as the nights stay warm, and if cilantro gives up early, this group may change your summer greens. Many gardeners believe leafy greens belong only to spring and fall. For crops like lettuce, spinach, arugula, and cilantro, that is often true in hot regions. Once the heat builds, they rush into seed, turn bitter, or stop making tender leaves. But your summer container garden does not have to lose all its greens. It means you need greens that were built for heat. The first one is amaranth. Amaranth is one of the most useful leafy crops for hot weather because it does not behave like delicate spring lettuce. It can grow in warm soil, handle bright conditions, and give you tender leaves when many cool season greens are struggling. Depending on the variety, the leaves may be green, red, or mixed, making the container look beautiful. In a pot, amaranth does best when you give it enough room to make steady leaf growth. A medium to large container is better than a tiny pot, and regular harvesting keeps the plant useful. Do not wait until the plant becomes too tall, tough, or woody before you start cutting. Summer greens are often best when you harvest them young and often. The mistake to avoid with amaranth is treating it like a one-time harvest. Instead, think of it as a cut and come again crop. Take leaves while they are still young, leave enough growth for the plant to recover, and keep the moisture steady around the roots. The second plant is Malabar spinach. This one solves a problem that regular spinach cannot solve in hot weather. Malabar spinach is not a true spinach, but in a summer container garden, it may be far more useful. It loves warmth, it climbs, and it can turn a hot balcony or patio into a wall of edible green leaves. Because it is a vine, Malabar spinach needs support. A small trellis, string, bamboo frame, fence panel, or balcony railing can give it something to climb. Without support, the vines may sprawl and tangle. With support, the plant becomes vertical food, a huge advantage when space is limited. Malabar spinach has thick, tender leaves and brings a lush look to a summer garden. But even this plant needs water. If the root zone dries out too far, growth can slow down. A container with steady moisture, mulch, and a trellis can help it become one of the best hot weather greens for small spaces. The mistake to avoid is planting it with no plan for where it will go. Once it starts climbing, it needs direction. Train it early, tie vines loosely if needed, and harvest young tips to keep the plant branching. If you have one sunny wall or narrow trellis, Malabar spinach can make that space useful through the heat. The third plant is New Zealand spinach. Like Malabar spinach, it is not the same as true spinach, but it is often used as a spinach substitute in warm weather. Instead of standing tall, it tends to spread. That makes it useful for wider containers, grow bags, or low tubs where the plant can trail and cover space. New Zealand spinach can keep giving tender tips when regular spinach is no longer happy. You can harvest the growing tips and young leaves, then let the plant branch again. This makes it valuable for gardeners who want cooking greens in summer without fighting the same bolting problem every year. The container should be wide enough for the plant to spread. If it is squeezed into a tiny pot, it may not show its real strength. Give it soil volume, water, and a little room to move. In hot conditions, light afternoon protection can keep the leaves in better condition. The mistake to avoid with New Zealand spinach is neglect. Harvest the tender parts and keep the plant growing actively. Do not wait for it to become a dry, tangled mat before you use it. With regular picking, it can become a dependable summer green. The fourth plant in this group is Swiss chard. Swiss chard is not as heat-loving as amaranth or Malabar spinach, but it is much more flexible than many tender greens. It can often handle summer conditions better than lettuce, especially with steady moisture and protection from the most brutal afternoon sun. Swiss chard is also beautiful in containers. The stems can be white, yellow, orange, red, or pink, and the leaves are large enough to make a container look full. The best way to harvest it is to take the outer leaves and leave the center growing. This lets the plant keep making new leaves instead of being cut down all at once. The mistake to avoid is assuming chard can handle any level of stress. It is tougher than lettuce, but it still needs care. If the pot dries too often, if the sun reflects off concrete all day, or if the container is too small, chard can become tired and rough. Morning sun with light afternoon shade can be a very good setup in the hottest areas. This group matters because it gives you options. When lettuce fails, grow amaranth. When spinach bolts, grow Malabar spinach or New Zealand spinach. When you want a colorful leafy crop that can stay useful, try Swiss chard with steady water and a little protection. Summer greens are not about forcing spring crops to survive. They are about choosing leaves that understand heat. Once you have these greens growing, your container garden feels alive again. You can harvest leaves, cook fresh greens, fill empty pots, and keep the garden useful even when the weather is too hot for traditional salad crops. But some summer crops do more than give you leaves. They climb, spread, cover the soil, and turn empty heat into useful green space. Next, we move into cowpeas, yardlong beans, and sweet potato vines. Now let's move into the crops that make a hot, small space feel larger: climbing and spreading vegetables. These plants are useful because they climb up, trail out, cover bare soil, create shade, and turn empty heat into edible green growth. The first plant in this group is cowpeas, also called southern peas. For hot parts of the United States, cowpeas make a lot of sense because they are comfortable in warm weather. When spring peas are finished and cool season beans are struggling, cowpeas can step into the summer garden with much more confidence. In containers, cowpeas need a good-sized pot or grow bag and enough space for the variety you choose. Some types stay bushy, while others want to climb or sprawl. That detail matters. If you plant a vining type with no support, the plant can tangle across the ground, dry out faster, and become harder to harvest. If you give it a simple trellis, string, or fence panel, it can use vertical space and keep the garden cleaner. Cowpeas are also helpful because they give the garden movement and structure. The leaves fill space, the flowers attract attention, and the pods give you something real to pick. For gardeners with a patio, balcony, or small backyard, this is valuable. A container crop that grows upward can produce without taking over the entire floor. The mistake to avoid is overcrowding. It is tempting to plant many seeds in one pot because the seedlings look small at first. But in summer heat, crowded roots compete for water quickly. Crowded leaves also reduce airflow. A few well-spaced plants in a strong container will usually perform better than a crowded pot that dries out every afternoon. Water matters most when the plant is flowering and forming pods. Cowpeas can tolerate heat better than many crops, but the pods still need steady moisture to develop well. Deep watering, mulch, and a container that does not dry completely are the basic rules. The second plant is yardlong beans. If you want a crop that looks dramatic in a summer container garden, yardlong beans are hard to beat. The vines climb quickly, the leaves create a green screen, and the long pods look almost unreal when they begin to hang from the trellis. Yardlong beans are especially useful for gardeners who have vertical space but not much ground space. A sunny balcony railing, a tall bamboo frame, a cattle panel, or a string trellis can turn one container into a tall wall of food. Instead of spreading across the patio, the plant goes up. The key is to build the support before the vines need it. If you wait until the plant is already tangled, it becomes harder to train without breaking stems. Start with a sturdy trellis, guide the young vines gently, and check them often as they grow. Yard-long beans love warm conditions, but they should not be ignored. When the plant begins flowering and setting pods, dry soil can reduce production. A long vine in a small pot can use water quickly, especially in wind or reflected heat. This is another place where a larger container and mulch can make the plant easier to manage. Harvest is also important. Pick the pods while they are still tender. If you leave too many pods to become old and tough, the plant may slow down. Frequent harvest keeps the crop useful and keeps you connected to the plant. Every time you pick, you can check the soil, look for pests, and guide the vines back onto the trellis. The third plant is sweet potato vines. This one is different because it can give you food and also help protect the container itself. The leaves are edible, the vines are vigorous in warm weather, and the growth can cover the soil surface like a living mulch. That living mulch effect is one of the reasons sweet potato vines are so useful in summer containers. Bare soil heats quickly and loses water fast. When vines spread over the surface, they shade the soil, reduce direct sun on the potting mix, and make the container look full and alive. If you want sweet potato roots, the container needs to be large. A small pot can grow vines, but it may not give enough room for a meaningful root harvest. A grow bag, tote, tub, or large container is better if your goal is both leaves and roots. If your main goal is edible leaves, the plant can be more flexible, but it still appreciates steady moisture and room to spread. The mistake to avoid is not deciding what you want from the plant. If you want leaves, harvest young tips and keep the vine growing. If you want roots, give it more soil volume and do not constantly strip the plant. The same plant can be useful in both ways, but your care should match your goal. Sweet potato vines can also soften the look of a container garden. They spill over edges, cover hot surfaces, and make a small space feel greener. They pair well with taller crops nearby because they fill the low layer while other plants grow upward. This group shows a different way to think about summer containers. Cowpeas bring heat tolerance and pods. Yardlong beans bring vertical harvest and shade. Sweet potato vines bring edible leaves, soil cover, and the possibility of roots if the container is large enough. When space is small and the weather is hot, do not think only about individual plants. Think in layers. A tall crop can climb. A well-planned container garden uses height, width, and surface cover to protect itself. Now that we have fruiting crops, leafy greens, and climbing plants, let's add the herbs that can keep a summer container garden useful every single day. Now let's add the herbs, because a summer container garden is not only about large harvest crops. Sometimes the plants you use every day are the ones that make the garden feel most alive. Fresh basil from a pot near the kitchen can make the whole garden feel useful, even when the weather is too hot for delicate greens. The 14th plant is basil. Basil is one of the best warm season herbs for containers because it enjoys the kind of weather that makes cilantro and parsley struggle. It likes warmth, grows quickly, and can keep giving leaves if you harvest it the right way. In summer containers, basil needs steady moisture, good light, and regular cutting. The mistake many beginners make is letting basil grow straight up without pruning. When basil is never cut back, it can become tall, thin, and eager to flower. Once the plant focuses too much on flowers and seed, the leaf harvest usually slows down. The better habit is to harvest from the top and cut just above a pair of leaves. This encourages the plant to branch. Instead of one tall stem, you can create a fuller plant with more growing tips. More growing tips means more places for new leaves to form. But do not strip the plant bare. Summer harvesting should be regular, not violent. Take enough to encourage branching, but leave enough leaves for the plant to keep feeding itself. If the plant is small, harvest lightly. As it becomes stronger, you can take more. Basil also tells you quickly when the root zone is too dry. The leaves may wilt, thin out, or lose that fresh, full look. A larger pot, mulch around the base, and morning watering can help basil stay productive in heat. In very hot afternoon sun, basil may appreciate light protection during the harshest part of the day. The 15th plant is Thai basil. You could also choose another heat-friendly herb like oregano or rosemary. But Thai basil deserves a place because it handles summer warmth very well and gives a different flavor from sweet basil. It has a strong fragrance, attractive stems, and often feels more durable in hot weather. Thai basil works beautifully in containers. It can grow near peppers, eggplant, or other summer crops, and it brings pollinators when it begins to flower. But if your goal is leaf production, you still need to harvest and pinch regularly. Letting every stem flower too early can reduce the tender leaf harvest. The mistake to avoid with Thai basil is treating it like decoration only. Pinch growing tips, cut small bundles, remove flower spikes when needed, and keep the soil from drying completely. If your garden style leans more Mediterranean, rosemary or oregano can be good bonus herbs for hot containers. They are not used the same way as basil. Basil likes consistent moisture. Rosemary and oregano prefer sharper drainage and do not want soggy soil. Putting all herbs into the same watering routine can cause problems. Rosemary can handle sun and heat, but it hates wet feet. Oregano can manage warm, bright conditions, but it usually wants a well-draining potting mix. Basil may wilt when too dry. Rosemary may suffer when too wet. This is why the harvest routine matters. In summer, how you harvest can decide whether a plant keeps producing or slowly shuts down. For leafy herbs like basil and Thai basil, Harvest early in the day when the plant is hydrated and fresh. Cut above leaf nodes. Encourage branching. Do not wait until the plant is woody and covered in flowers before you begin. For fruiting crops like peppers, eggplant, okra, cucumbers, and beans, harvest before the fruit becomes too old. Young okra pods, tender beans, glossy eggplant, and properly sized cucumbers keep the plant in a productive rhythm. If too much mature fruit stays on the plant may slow down because it thinks its job is done. For leafy greens like amaranth, Malabar spinach, New Zealand spinach, and Swiss chard, harvest in a way that leaves the plant alive and growing. Take outer leaves, tips, or young growth. Leave enough green tissue for recovery. A container plant has limited roots, so it needs leaves to keep making energy. The second part of the summer routine is observation. Do not wait a full week to notice a problem in extreme heat. Containers can change fast. A pot that was moist yesterday may be dry today. A vine that looked perfect in the morning may need support by evening. A basil plant that was full last week may be trying to flower now. This does not mean you need to fuss over the garden all day. It means short, regular check-ins are better than emergency rescues. Look at the soil, touch the mulch, check the underside of leaves. Notice which plants recover after afternoon heat and which ones stay stressed. The third part is feeding carefully. A productive summer container garden needs nutrients, but heat-stressed plants do not need to be shocked. If a plant is dry and wilted, fix the water first. If the roots are cooking in a small pot, fix the container problem first. Fertilizer cannot solve a root zone that is too hot, too dry, or too crowded. Gentle, steady feeding works better than panic feeding. Keep the plant growing, but do not push it so hard that it becomes weak during a heat wave. So now, we have all 15 plants: fruiting crops, leafy greens, climbing crops, spreading vines, and herbs. The real power comes from matching the plant to your space. A hot balcony may need compact peppers, basil, and Malabar spinach. A patio may handle eggplant, okra, and tomatoes. A small backyard may support cowpeas, beans, and sweet potato vines. The best summer garden is not the one with every plant on the list. It is the one where each container has a purpose. Now that we have all 15 plants, let's put everything into one simple summer container plan. Now we have all 15 plants, and the most important thing is not to grow every single one at the same time. The real goal is to choose the plants that match your heat, your space, your containers, and the way you can care for them. So let's put the whole list into one simple summer container plan. If you want fruiting crops, start with okra, eggplant, peppers, heat-tolerant cherry tomatoes, Armenian cucumber, or another heat-tolerant cucumber, and compact summer squash. These are the crops that make a summer container garden feel productive. They give you pods, fruit, color, vines, and visible harvests. But they also need the most support. Okra needs height and a deep container. Eggplant needs steady moisture and sometimes a stake. Peppers need consistency, so flowers do not drop from stress. Tomatoes need heat-tolerant varieties, a large pot, mulch, and a strong cage. Cucumbers need a trellis and regular watering. Summer squash needs honesty, a large container, good airflow, and enough space to grow without crowding. If your space is small, do not start with all 6. Choose 1 or 2. A compact pepper and a basil plant can be better than 5 crowded containers that dry out every afternoon. A healthy eggplant in one strong pot can be more rewarding than 3 weak plants fighting for water. If you want leafy greens in summer, choose amaranth, Malabar spinach, New Zealand spinach, or Swiss chard. These are your replacements when lettuce and true spinach no longer want to cooperate. They do not all grow the same way. Amaranth gives you tender leaves when harvested young. Malabar spinach climbs and turns a hot wall into edible green growth. New Zealand spinach spreads across a wider container. Swiss chard brings color and can keep producing if you harvest the outer leaves and protect it from the harshest conditions. If your garden has a trellis, railing, fence panel, or even a few strong strings, use that vertical space. Malabar spinach, yardlong beans, cowpeas, and cucumbers can turn one container into a tall food wall. In a small garden, vertical growth is not just pretty. It saves floor space, improves airflow, and can create a little shade for the parts below. If your problem is bare, hot soil, think about spreading crops. Sweet potato vines are one of the most useful because they can give edible leaves while covering the soil surface like a living mulch. If you want roots, give them a large container. If you only want leaves, harvest young tips and let the vines keep growing. If you want daily flavor from a small space, grow basil and Thai basil. These herbs make the garden useful every day. They are easy to reach, easy to harvest, and perfect for containers near the kitchen. But they still need care. Pinch the tops, keep them branching, and do not let every stem rush into flowers if your goal is leaf harvest. Now, before you choose your first 3 plants, remember this simple rule. The hotter your summer is, the more important the container becomes. In mild weather, a small pot may forgive you. In extreme heat, it will not forgive you for long. A small container dries fast, heats fast, and gives the roots very little protection. That is why the final system matters more than the list itself. Right plant, bigger pot, deep watering, mulch, morning sun, light afternoon shade when needed. Regular harvest, gentle feeding, short check-ins before small problems become big problems. If you have a hot balcony, a good starter combination might be peppers, basil, and Malabar spinach. The pepper gives fruit, the basil gives daily leaves, and the Malabar spinach climbs upward without taking much floor space. If you have a sunny patio, you might try eggplant, okra, and a heat-tolerant cherry tomato. Give each one a serious container, mulch the surface, and check the soil during the hottest part of the week. If you have a small backyard or a space where you can build a trellis, try yardlong beans, cowpeas, cucumber, or sweet potato vines. These crops can fill vertical and spreading spaces that would otherwise sit empty and hot. If you mostly want greens, start with amaranth, New Zealand spinach, and Swiss chard. Harvest lightly and often. Keep the roots moist. Give them morning sun and a little protection if the afternoon heat is too harsh. You do not need a perfect garden. You need a garden that responds to your season. Summer is not spring, so the planting plan should not look like spring. Instead of trying to force cool weather vegetables through a heat wave, let summer crops do what they are good at. And do not judge your garden only by midday leaves. Many plants droop slightly in intense afternoon heat and recover later. Look at the whole pattern. Is the soil dry below the surface? Does the plant recover by evening? Are new leaves forming? Are flowers turning into fruit? Are you harvesting regularly? Those clues tell you more than one tired afternoon. A hot summer does not have to stop your container garden. It simply asks you to grow the plants that were built for heat, then protect their roots so they can keep working. When you match the right crop with the right container, the season changes from a problem into an opportunity. So if your lettuce failed, your spinach bolted, or your spring garden disappeared in the heat, do not quit. Choose 3 heat-loving crops from this list. Give them larger containers, deep water, mulch, and a little shade when the sun becomes too harsh. Start small, watch closely, and let your summer garden become a different kind of garden. Not a weaker garden, not an empty garden. A warmer, tougher, more practical container garden that can still give you food when the season feels impossible.